Right, hello and welcome to this week's angling blog. Today you join myself and my uncle on the banks of the river in search of silvers. It is the first weekend after the rivers have opened. We went out on the opening day and we'd left the river in quite good condition, a different river to this one, and when we went back, like you find, the fish moved with the seasons and it was quite a poor start to the opening day of the season, if I'm honest. I went out for Barwell the next day and again a low clear river, was quite disappointing, but I'll put that session up another time, probably in a midweek blog, because I did do some recording. Today, as I say, we're on the river, we're fishing the pole and we're in search of silvers. The first thing I did when I got on the peg, like I always say, mix your ground bait so it's got time to settle. So the first thing we'll do is we'll have a look at the ground bait. Just arrived at the peg and the first thing I'm going to do is mix up my ground bait for the day. The ground bait that I've gone with is senseless roach. So what I'm going to do is take some of the particles out of that, some of the bigger particles. So I'm going to just mix up half a bag, as you can see there, just taking them bigger particles out of the ground bait, because you want to have a control over the mix, because what you want is a mix that you can add your particles to, so you have control of what's in them balls that you're going to put in. And I always treat it like the canal. If I was fishing for carp, I'd leave them in, or a commercial, because I don't think the bigger particles have too much problem there. But on a venue where you're going to be fishing for gudgeon, roach, bream, I always take them particles out. So the first thing I'm going to do is mix up the dry mix. I said it's probably about half a bag there, and I always do this when I first arrive at the peg, because then by the time you put your keep net in and set up a couple of rigs, it's about right then to go through the middle. Knowing this ground bait, one thing you have got to be careful with this ground bait is mixing it. It's very easy to get it over wet. Some ground baits, your margin for error is quite big, but with the senseless roach, I've noticed it's very easy to go past that point where it's a bit ruined. So what I do is I mix it to the point where it goes in my hand, but a bit of it stays on, and then by the time it's dried, you'll find that your hand will be clear once it's ready. So that's the mix there. I'm just going to put it to one side and we'll get back to it in a couple of minutes when I've set up some rigs. Come back to the ground bait. As you can see, to squeeze it, it's a lot cleaner your hand, and that's the sign that I use that it's about ready to go through the riddle. If it was sticking to my hand and leaving loads of, you know, like really clumpy, then I'd leave it a bit longer. Sometimes when you get to this stage it needs a bit more water, but I would say that that's just about right. It goes into a ball and then breaks up that easy. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get the ground bait through the middle. Right, so as you can see there, when I first arrive at the peg, the first thing I do is mix the ground bait and let it settle. And then by the time you've set your pole up or your rod, put your basket down, put your net in, it's generally there or thereabouts to go through the riddle. As you can see, I've added molehill soil to that ground bait. What you've got to think about with ground bait, the way I think about ground baits is, like I said then, you've got to think about what you want it to do. Do you want a ground bait that's sloppy, that's going to cloud the upper layers when you're fishing on the drop to give the, you know, colour to the water? Or do you want a ground bait that's heavy to get your bait to the bottom? As you'll see on the rig in a minute, I'm fishing a bulk shot on quite a heavy float, a 1.25 gram float. So my fishing theory today is I want the fish on the bottom. I want the rig to go straight down to the bottom and be fishing in the bottom layers of the water. Now it is going to be quite a hot day, so feeding is going to be important, but that's what I want from the ground bait, and that's where you get the weight from the molehill soil, but you also get a bit of darkness as well. So when you put them particles and your maggots in the ground bait, it's straight on the bottom and it's down where you're fishing, and it keeps the fish on that bottom. So that's my thinking on ground bait, and I always mix it on the bank because then you can judge what you want it to do. Looking at the rig for today, my top kit on my pole, I've got my Drennan Aqua, a lovely light elastic that is, one that I really enjoy for the silver fishing. It's got a bit of power to it with the puller kit, but it is really light, and it's an elastic that I really do like. Float for today is a Dino float, and it's the Dino Belge 1.25 gram float. I've got that down to a bulk of number 8s and number 4s, 3 droppers, number 8s, down to a size 18 hook. So what we'll have a look now is the swim and the side tray. One of the early lessons that my uncle always taught me was about dark water and being able to see your float. So when I'm sat on that box there, you can see the dark water from that tree. You'll be really easy to see your float over the top of that, and that is probably round about there where I'm fishing out, about 4 to 5 meters out. And as I say, it goes out and it really does drop down deep, and I'm just fishing on that top of that shelf. The temperatures are really warm, and as you can see there's plenty of fish topping round about that line where that fish is where I'm going to be fishing. So let's have a look at the side tray. Side tray for today, I've got red maggot, Cheshire particle hemp and ground bait, and they're going to be the main baits that I'm going to be fishing with today. Right, so to start the swim off, just 3 balls of ground bait loaded with hemp, and what I'm going to do is one about the same size loaded with maggot. As I say, you can't mix that up earlier, just breaks the balls up, but yeah, that's the plan. 3 balls to start the swim off, and then fish over the top and see how we do. Right, so just feeding 1 ball at a time in my bigger cupping kit, and over the top just going to put some red maggot. And what I'm doing, if you can see on there, lining up with the base of that tree right there. So go out, line up with the base of the tree, just drop it in. And just repeat. That's the 3 balls fed. I'm going to go straight in with a single red maggot, and it is a venue that does hold a good head of silverfish, but you never really know when the river's open just where the fish are and how many are in front of you. So them 3 balls isn't a lot of ground bait on a river and isn't a lot of bait, but it's just a nice amount just to start the session off. So I'm going to go straight over the top with a single red maggot. Let's see how we do. And there's the first fish of the session. A little roach. As you can see, feeding them 3 balls of ground bait, it's taken about 3 minutes to get the first fish. So I'm going to go straight back over the top again. I'm just going to feed a little pinch of hemp. And only a small amount of maggot, because what I don't want is the fish to come up in the water really. I'm not too worried about the hemp because the hemp will go straight down. There we go, a little small billy, and the bavin of the red maggot. I don't think there's a fish that loves them more. That's a lovely fish. So as you can see there, 2 fish in quite quick succession. And now it's just about judging the feeding. So what I'm going to do is just repeat the process and see how it fishes. And what you're looking for is learning how many fish are in the swim and whether you need to top up. When you top up is the key. 2 bites that quick tells me there's still a bit of bait around. So just going to continue to feed a pinch of hemp and a little bit of maggot over the top. The first better fish of the day. Looks like a skimmer. And there we go, the 3rd fish of the day, and that is a good sign, that. A better fish and a skimmer coming on that ground bait. So already after about 10 minutes, the swim's already changed. Getting signs as soon as I go in now. So from sitting for 5 minutes for the bite, as soon as that float's settling, getting loads of knocks, which tells you there's a lot of fish in the swim. You see there straight away. Species number 4 of the day, a rudd. So that's a roach, a perch, a skimmer and a rudd so far. A nice little mixed bag. So it's just a case now of repeating it. A pinch of hemp and a pinch of maggot every cast. We'll judge when we need to feed more ground bait. Right, so that's the best fish of the session. A lovely skimmer, and hopefully that little clip there has shown the bites have really come when I've fed over the top with hemp. Now I have got tears with me today, so I might nip a tear on every now and again and just see. But that's a lovely fish, that, and that's about half an hour into the session. Now if there's a few of them about, then maybe you do have to feed a bit more ground bait, but we'll wait till the quality drops and see how we do. But that's a great start, that. And that tiny little gudgeon, I think it's species number 6, because we had a dace, but that is a sign that it's time to put some ground bait in. When you go from a decent skimmer to one of them, that's when you know it's time to top the swim up. What I've done, I've mixed up 3 more balls, and they are heavily laced with that hemp seed. And fishing at times is as much about reading the swim in front of you and knowing how to feed the swim as it is, you know, rigs and stuff like that. The fish today are definitely reacting to hemp seed more than the maggot. So these 3 balls of ground bait are, you know, laced heavily with hemp, because the fish are reacting to it, and that's what I'm seeing in the swim. So I'm going to get these 3 balls in. We had the gudgeon, so let's see what difference these make. It might kill it, you just don't know till you try. But till you try, you can't learn, can you? And I think when we put that in, I don't think it'll be too long before the skimmers along. And I think today's going to be all about feeding these balls of hemp quite regular. Right, so fed that ground bait, and I had a small fish, and then as you can see there, the elastic's out the pole. You see we're into a better fish again, and that just shows, like I was saying, you feed them 3 more balls of ground bait and you go from a gudgeon to one of them better skimmers. Right, so there's that better fish, say a skimmer. When you seen we had that gudgeon just before we fed it, then you can only say that it's the feeding over the top that's drawing it back in. What I'm going to do, obviously it's the first proper weekend of the river season. I'm going to have a couple of hours and just going to enjoy it, because it looks like there's a few bites to be had. And there we go. Lovely skimmer or roach hybrid. Though I have put up a good fight on the pole. Let's get it back. So whenever the bites have died today, just gone over it with a big ball of ground bait loaded with that treasure particle hemp. And as you can see, a dark ground bait. It's been feeding these that's kept the fish coming. And like I was saying, very next cast, another skimmer. And what are they? Maybe 4 or 5 ounces each, maybe. Quality days fishing, and so good to be back on the river again. Right, so I've been fishing for a couple of hours now. Just drip feeding the hemp over the top still, a couple of grains, and every now and again a big ball of the ground bait with a bit of hemp in and maggot over the top. And like I just said then, that the skimmers are really coming onto it now. Most of the fish we're getting are skimmers. When the pace picks up a bit of the river, you get the odd roach, but the majority of the time the skimmers have really moved in on that ground bait. And yeah, it just shows the, when you're putting that hemp seed in and a mixture of the ground bait, how it holds them where you want them. If you put your hemp in the right place, it keeps the fish where you want them. If you want them 3 yards down your peg, put your hemp with the flow of the river so it lands 3 yards down the peg. Today the flow hasn't been that great at times, so I've literally been getting them maybe 2 or 3 yards away from where I put the ground bait in. Right, so the gear's packed away now just to keep nets to come out. So how's the session gone? A little bit of a quick recap. Started off like a house on fire really. The fish were responding to when you were putting hemp over the top of them. Hopefully that's going to come out in the editing. I really do hope so, that when I look back you can see me, you can see the bait hitting the water and the float going not long after. So very quickly cut back feeding maggot, because obviously the hemp will get the naturally better fish, and just had maggot on the hook. And for the first couple of hours it was steady fishing, the bream and the skimmers, and I had like quite a big bream that I didn't really have a chance to show on film because someone was talking to me, and it was going well. Then the wind got up, and as you can see behind me there, the wind really did get up, and it made keeping the bait right in front of me really difficult over my baited spot. And obviously bream are a fish that doesn't like to chase, so it made it very difficult. But the wind dropped for the last bit and we got into a good steady stream of fish again, and both me and my uncle have had a cracking day's fishing on the bank. Without looking at the nets, we must have close, if not over 20 pound of fish, I would think. We've both had lots of skimmers and bream, and my uncle's had a couple of nice perch as well. So what we'll do now, in a second we'll have a look at the final net. But before we have a look at it, early on the channel I did a question and answer when there was about 200-300 subscribers, and there's obviously a lot more now looking at the channel. So if you've got any questions on any type of fishing, drop it in the comments below on any of the type of fishing that I do. And what I'll try and do on the future blogs, I'll have a little bit of the blog where I answer a couple of questions, or do a question and answers video as such. We'll see how it fits in. But if you've got any questions on me fishing, on the type of fishing that I do, or any questions on the rigs and stuff like that, just drop it in the description below and I'll try my best to answer the questions as well as I can. So yeah, let's have a quick look at that final net. Right, so there's my uncle's net of fish, easily over 20 pound, some big skimmers, a big perch in the corner. Let's say if you look at it side on, solid day's fishing and very enjoyable. A couple of pictures and we'll get them back. There's the final net of fish. Again, like my uncle's, over 20 pound easily. We've caught enough 20 pound nets to know it's over that. And yeah, between the two of us, had a good day's fishing. Plenty of skimmers, and most of all, plenty of bites. A lovely net of fish. I say quite deep as well if you look at the side. Won't keep them out too long and we'll get them back. Good solid day's fishing. Thank you very much for watching. Tight lines in your own fishing, and I'll catch us all next week. Tight lines.